always use this reference of, human beings can see such a very small scale and perceive such a very small scale of what's actually on all these waves that are traveling around us at all time. Even from my visual eye to the light bulb, I can't see the light waves that are coming to my eyes, but I can't see the physical product at the other end. And the same with sound, right? I can't see the sound waves coming to my ears, but I can hear the sound very clearly. And so to know that, these things exist, and to know that each sound has such a specific shape and pattern every single time, it really makes you really pay attention to the vibe and the energy that you are putting out. Because when you see these things, you're like, oh, this is something physical. Like this is something that is not just a myth of magic that you can feel. It's like, no, what you tell yourself in the morning, or your own self-dialogue, or how you communicate to other people, or the energy or the vibe you put out, like that is impactful on many levels.
Hi, Ohana. Welcome to the Musician Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Alise Koa, where we talk about the myth of getting signed to, air quote, make it. This is not true and outdated information. That's why I'm bringing on so many different independent musicians that are, in their definition, air quote, making it, to prove to you that there's a plethora of ways for everyday musicians like you and me to make money. Now, I know there are so many different things we need to know as independent musicians, from how to write great copy and how to market and songwriting and producing and how to build a home studio and so on. Most of the time, we don't even know what we need to know. It's hard to juggle it all. So I put together a free members area that you can sign up to right now, where I share my favorite podcasts, books, and online courses on all those topics with you, so you can save yourself money and time. I've done it all for you. As Tony Robbins likes to say, growth is the only limit to your happiness. And we don't want that. All you have to do is click the link below or go to alisekoa.com/free. Now, let's get started. Welcome to the Musician Secrets podcast. Today, I have a special guest that's the first time to ever come back on my podcast so far. I have Jodie B with me today, but she is going to be talking about something very, very special, because she's actually the producer and engineer for Frequency Winery, which she'll explain in a minute why it makes it so special. But yeah, welcome back, Jodie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Honor to be here, and pleasure to be talking to you today about frequency.
Yeah, it's crazy because the way I found out about it was really weird. I mean, not weird, but not the typical way of how I usually do my research and stuff. And it was actually through a Netflix series. I think it's called Restaurants on the Edge or something.
Yeah.
It's basically like renewing the restaurants that are about to go broke, and they have this team come in and basically save them and bring in different restaurants and stuff that are local to kind of support that new restaurant. And Frequency Winery was one of those, and they kind of explained like their process and what makes them so special. And when I saw it, I'm like, holy crap, like I need to email them, and maybe if maybe they'll say yes, that'd be awesome. And I just need to have them on the podcast. And then that's how I met you and Jacob, and it kind of snowballed into something way bigger than I could have ever dreamed of. But yeah, I'm so excited. So just explain what makes the Frequency Winery so special, how it got started, like the history behind it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically the history of frequency and how it got started. So the owner, Tony Anthony Lewis, he was in his parents' winery, which is Vibrant Vine. It's another winery here in the Okanagan. And he was drumming, because he's a drummer and a really talented sound engineer. And when he was drumming away, the wine barrels that were in his parents' winery, the wine barrels closest to the drum kit were settling faster. And so basically settling, meaning when you make wine, you have grape skin, seeds, and stems that are left in the barrels that you obviously want to get rid of before you bottle it and sell it. So there's different ways and different methods of clearing the sediment out of the wine. It's called clarification. And so he was discovering that the wine barrels closest to the drum kit were clarifying faster than the ones that were further away from the drum kit. So he's kind of, as a sound engineer, is what's happening there with the sound waves? What's that happening? And so there's a really great example of like what this looks like visually on how sound waves affect particles and matter. It's called the Chladni plate, spelled Chladni, Chladni plate. And it's a steel plate that sits on top of basically a speaker or tone generator that vibrates and sends out a specific frequency. So say 528 hertz, which is 1 octave above middle C, or 402 hertz, which is an A. So it'll put out one tone, and then you put sand or salt on top of the metal plate, and then you'll see a pattern appear, and it's so geometrically perfectly laid out, and it's the exact same every single time with that frequency. So 528 hertz will have its own shape, 432 will have its own shape. Each note, each frequency has its own geometric shape and pattern. And so when you have a harmonic frequency, you have these sound waves that kind of go up and down like this. And, you know, maybe I'll just like try and quickly show you on here.
Everyone, the video will be on YouTube, so you can watch it as well. Right.
Okay. Well, I'll do my best to
no, you can show it. So if go ahead, you can show it because it's on YouTube too.
Okay, so you have like a sound wave that goes up and down like this, right? And then when you have another sound wave that gets released, and these sound waves end up intersecting with each other. So you kind of have like a sound wave going like this. Well, when you have another sound wave, and then they're kind of intersecting. So these points, these node points here, that's where phase cancellation is going to happen. So there's actually no sound or no vibration happening in those spots where the sound waves intersect with each other. So when you have matter and it's moving everywhere, it'll stop in those node points. It'll stop in the points where there's no vibration happening. It's really cool. So if you actually YouTube Chladni plate, Chladni plate, you'll get a really nice visual representation of what sound frequencies can do to particles and matter. And we thought it was pretty important here to kind of carry that message through to the wine, and because it obviously affects us as well as humans, as we are made up of water. Totally. And there's no doubt about it. We feel different if we have headphones and we listen to classical music or meditation music that has a lot of harmonic frequencies and harmonic tones in it. We feel different, right? As if we were to put on headphones with heavy metal music for an hour, which just uses a lot of distortion frequencies. And those distortion frequencies won't create those, just won't have as much phase cancellation in the really geometric kind of shapes and patterns that form. So that's kind of how frequency came about. Was Tony had this idea, and this wonderful lady, Alexis Laycraft, she helped kind of, build and market it and build it to what it is today. And so he had a few studios before, so he thought, well, let's kind of collaborate the two. Let's make a winery and a studio under one umbrella. And nice. Just try to put as much harmonic frequencies and good vibrations and everything that we do here, hopefully letting it affect the taste of the wine and how that makes you feel.
Wow. Yeah. So for those that are watching on YouTube, you can actually see, because you're at Frequency Winery right now, so you can actually see the huge mixing table, right? And then in the background, like all the wine and stuff. It looks really cool. So how how did you pick your bands then? Because obviously, or did you not? Did you just have everyone play and see what happens, or were you very like selective of the bands or the singers or the performers that came in to produce? Like, how did you select them?
So originally we were just using specific tones,
Yeah.
specifically the frequency of 528 hertz,
Uh,
because it's our body's physiological hum. We like really resonate as humans with 528 hertz. And
yeah.
that's why it's often used a lot in meditation music.
Oh, what
One of
is
the,
that? Was this that? Do you know what tone that is? 528?
it's one oct. It's the is I believe 528 hertz is one octave above middle C.
Middle C? Okay.
Yeah, one
That's,
octave above middle C. So it's
so
we
it's a
have
quite
like this,
high frequency, right?
yeah, yeah, different tones, different frequencies make us feel different ways. And yeah, 528 hertz is really what we tried to focus on playing to our wines in the beginning, because it's kind of the love and light frequency.
Yeah, yeah.
And we really wanted to try and push the message of gratitude
Yes.
and service as much as we can here. And so we used one tone to clear the sediment of the wine, but then we actually wanted to give back to the community in a way where we actually had free recordings. We no longer do that, but for the first few years, we would do free 1 hour studio recordings.
Nice.
So that opened it up to everybody. It opened it up to everybody, all different kinds of genres and artists. And we've had over 400 artists in the studio, from singing bowls to big, Japanese gongs and stuff like that, like all kinds of really
It really
cool
is everything.
everything. Yeah, everything. And then so at one point we would kind of, play the music that we recorded to the wine, but for the most part, using the actual harmonic tones we would use to settle the wine itself.
Okay.
And yeah, now we're trying to establish the studio a little bit more. So we have a bit of some different rates and stuff, but it's, more or less still the same.
Nice. Yeah. So you actually, you didn't even have to play it live, like even if it's just a recording of sound or a frequency, right? That works too. So it doesn't even have to be live.
No, we actually would wrap speakers, just like these ones behind me. We'd wrap speakers around the barrels and just blast like that one harmonic tone, just as headphones on a human, that's how we would.
So how has that changed? Like, because you're in your previous episode, I don't know if that's 2 or 3 I can't even remember, but in your episode we talked about your individual work, and we talked about War Cry, which my husband has downloaded on Amazon and has been listening on repeat now ever since I showed it to him.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Yeah, so we're both fans now. But basically, how does that affect you as like producing music and stuff? Did that change for you at all, like knowing how sound really affects people and how your music as a producer could potentially affect your listeners?
I've definitely become more aware of it. I haven't quite started implementing it in my music myself yet. I'm still just trying to find the balance of producing and mixing and working for other people as well as doing my own stuff. But I am fully aware that you can implement certain frequencies and certain tones to make people feel a certain way. The Beatles were actually known for using the frequency of 528 hertz a lot in their music. And so there are artists that specifically implement certain tones and frequencies in order to try and make people feel a certain way. I have yet to kind of try to implement that in the production of my music. I'm more trying to focus on that with the lyrics and how I sing and stuff, and the message. But totally. I will cross and combine the two.
I mean, it's a hard one, to find that sweet spot. I think It's not like meditation music that's very like monotone, right, where you just like they just put in one frequency throughout the entire,
Yeah.
like the hum, and then they just put some little, it's a little bit more uh, complex, I guess. I don't know, it's a little harder, I would say, to when you're like putting together like a full song and like a production, right?
Yeah, and to have this one note that's kind of lingering in the background, or a series of notes, but in a certain way. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still like that, like when I saw that, it just completely like blew my mind. It's like, oh my gosh, if the sound, like music, can affect wine, like imagine what it does to us, right? Like you said, like we're mostly just water, really. Like what was something where you're like, oh my gosh, when you heard that the first time, or where you're like, this completely changes everything? Was there like a moment where you're like, wow?
Yeah, I think so. Another thing that we really like to talk about here is the work of Masaru Emoto. And he
Mhm.
was a really talented scientist and researcher, and he basically tried to prove how frequencies and tones and vibrations and energies can affect the molecular structure of water. And so
Uh-huh.
he would take water and expose it to certain things, certain phrases, and then freeze the water, take photographs of it kind of before and after each thing. And he
Yeah.
found a similarity between harmonic frequencies, so classical music, meditation music, stuff like that, and positive affirmations like "I
Uh,
love you," "You're beautiful," "You're kind." He found correlation in those two, as just like a distortion frequency. He found similar in, "I hate you, you fool." And there's no denying, when you walk into a room after a fight has just broken out, even
yeah.
if there's no verbal communication, nothing really needs to be said, but you feel that vibration, right? You feel that energy. And so I always use this reference of, human beings can see such a very small scale, and perceive such a very small scale of what's actually on these all these waves that are traveling around us at all time. Even from my visual eye to the light bulb, I
Yeah.
can't see the light waves that are coming to my eyes, but I
Yeah.
can't see the physical product at the other end.
Yeah.
And the same with sound, right? I can't see the sound waves coming to my ears, but I
Yeah.
can hear the sound very clearly. And so to know that, these things exist, and to know that each sound has such a specific shape and pattern every single time, it really makes you really pay attention to the vibe and the energy that you are putting out. Because
Yeah.
when you see these things, you're like, oh, this is something physical. Like, this is
Yeah.
something that is not just a myth of
Yeah.
magic that you can feel. It's like, no, what you tell yourself in the morning, or your own self dialogue, or how you communicate to other people, or the energy or the vibe you put out, like, that is impactful in on many levels. And so I think after working here and really understanding how frequencies can affect, like I said, matter and water, and seeing the work of Masaru Emoto, seeing studies that have been done with plants, where they
Mhm.
put like one plant in a room and they put another plant in a room, or they put rice and water in a room, they put another rice and water in another room, and every day they come in, they say to the rice and water or the plant, "I hate you, you suck, you're the worst." And then the other one, they'll come in and say, "I love you, you're so beautiful." And there's been lots of studies done where on that negative one that you give negative energy to every day, it will grow mold faster. It'll grow, the plant will die. And the other one, it'll take a lot longer before it starts to go bad, or, it'll be flourishing. It's really quite fascinating. And it's hard for us to believe, because it's just what our society has kind of been, trained to think. But when you try it, when you
Yeah.
do it yourself, and you live and breathe your own
Yeah.
example, it does make a difference. And it's important that we are like having nice communication with ourselves and with
Yes.
others as well, because
Yeah.
again, we really take that in, and it's affecting us physically, even though we can't see it doesn't mean it's
Yeah,
not happening. It doesn't,
exactly.
like the light and the sound, just because we can't see it does. And the same goes for, kind of a tangent here, but
Yeah.
spirits and souls, and
Yeah.
when people pass into other lives, there's a soul wave, there's another energy there. Again, humans have such a small perception on this massive scale of different waves and energies that are going on.
Yeah, totally. I 100% agree. I think we're kind of grown up in this society, like if you can't prove it, if you can't see it or touch it, or kind of show it in some way of experiment or whatnot, then it doesn't exist, right? And so like our intuition, or our whatever, listening to your heart or stuff like that, like really believing in yourself and kind of your inner instincts, kind of being flushed down the toilet a little bit, or kind of like belittled, where you're like, no, like make this pros and cons list, and then if the pros overweigh the cons, then do that. And if this really logical, I kind of struggle with that. I think musicians in general do, because we're very creative, right? And we're kind of more in tune with kind of creating something out of nothing. And I totally agree that just because you can't see it or hear it or touch it or whatnot doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? You can still feel that, like you said, you can feel that energy when you walk into the room and it's kind of awkward, you're like, what the heck happened in here, right? Like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you said how we react to other people and what we tell ourselves affects how we are, who we are and who we become, I think. And we would never say I hate you to someone else, or at least you're like in a real fight, but we would never really like say these really hurtful things to others, but we do it to ourselves, right? Oh, you're not beautiful, you're not beautiful enough, you're not good enough, you're not talented enough, you don't know what you're doing production wise, or you're not as good as a songwriter, or all that stuff we keep telling to ourselves, but we would usually not say to other people.
No. Yeah.
It's
It's
crazy.
funny, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You really like look at it, you're like, oh wow, yeah, okay, maybe I should maybe it's okay that I didn't do clean up the bathroom yesterday or whatever, right?
So what? It's still gonna be dirty tomorrow. It's like, that's what I say. Or like when my husband is like, oh, you forgot to do the laundry, I'm like, well, is it gonna go anywhere? He was like, no. Well,
Yeah.
I can still do it later. But also I'm really like, I'm a procrastinator. But I am aware of that. But just kind of be kind to yourself, because like what you're saying really proves that it's not just like talking negatively about yourself, but you're actually like destroying yourself then, right? Is that kind of, I don't know, that's what I'm hearing out of this conversation.
Yes, absolutely. And I found the biggest thing over the years of working here, when we try to tell and communicate this kind of discussion to people, the people that are a little like, what is this, whatever, right? As soon as we show them the Gladney plate,
Yeah.
then it's like, it is something physical that they
Yeah.
can see.
I
And
can
they're
see
like,
it.
oh, wow, I had no idea that sound and tones create really beautiful geometric shapes and patterns
Yeah.
every single time, right? Like there's no mistake in science and mathematical equations of that stuff. So when you can actually see physically that, it's cool, right? It's really cool. So I highly recommend anyone to check that out on Google or whatever, on YouTube.
Yeah. I'll link it up as well. I'll look it up and link it up below, so people can definitely check that out, because I think I'm just such a fan. I think that's why I kind of was like drawn to music. Like there was always something, I couldn't put my finger on it, but I'm like, music does something to me. Like I literally went from a depressed state to absolutely being happy by starting songwriting again, by listening to music, to an album where I'm like, yes, like I'm pretty sure if I would go back, it would have like certain frequencies in there and stuff. But but just the lyrics were positive. It was Unbreakable Smile by Tori Kelly. I mean, the title alone says everything, but it was just a really good, positive, uplifting album. And and that I call that the album that saved my life. So you could definitely see how that's where I like first time where I woke up, I'm like, oh my gosh, music is so much more than something that's running in the background, or that I just listen to when I'm jogging or whatnot, right? That was like the first time that I was aware of that. I had no idea until like obviously when I talked with Jacob and when I saw like the Frequency Winery on Netflix. I'm just like, this makes so much sense. Like I'm now like finally feel like tapping into this little bubble of like the real power behind sound and music, and ultimately like what power we hold as musicians. I think knowing this, I hope everyone that's listening to that, I hope you understand what power you actually hold within you. Absolutely. Right?
Yes, it's so big. Like I always tell all my artists and friends and stuff, like, don't forget you're the messenger, you know what I mean? Like, don't forget you're the ones that are communicating and helping people heal on a global level, because music is universal language, and music has been around for centuries and centuries as healing tools and properties. And Jacob, more than anybody else on this field that I really know anyways. But it's so important to remind ourselves of, like you said, the power that you hold as a musician or an artist or somebody that is speaking what is true to you, and often speaking or singing things that others might be afraid to say. Because how many times have you been, found connection in a song, or like you said, the album that saved your life? Or I've had many songs where I hear them rapping or talking or singing on lyrics. I thought maybe I was the only one that felt that way. And now I hear them singing it and I'm like, okay, this is common. I'm not alone. There's community, there's connection. And that's really all I think we want as human beings anyways, right? Is connection. So we've got the artists singing and speaking their truths and having the courage to say what might not be said elsewhere. There's always going to be somebody that will find strength and courage in those lyrics, which is, it's important to remind ourselves of, to get out of our own way and to get out of our own head, right? When we're deciding, I don't know if I should release that. It's like, well, I'll just do it because somebody else might find, some peace in it.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. I think because obviously I picked Jacob's brain on this whole, and it was a mind-blowing explosion of awesomeness. So for people that haven't listened to that, go back to Jacob's interview, and he goes like into depth into all of this. But basically what he said, with the one thing that just blew my mind is that I had no idea what happens, is he says within 30 seconds of a song, your brain frequency is on the BPM of the song, and within 45 seconds, your heart frequency aligns with the BPM of the song. So with less than a minute, you're connecting your brain and your heart frequency with the BPM of a song. And now I understand why live concerts are so amazing, because you said it's all about connection. Is you can get an entire crowd, an entire arena of people, thousands and thousands of people, within less than a minute. You can get them all to connect, literally align and connect with each other to the song in less than a minute, to the BPM of your song that you're playing.
So crazy. Yeah. So wild.
Tell me anything else that does that faster, that connects so many people that fast within less than a minute, brain and heart frequency, and aligns them all within like 45 seconds. I don't know any other tool that can do that.
No.
Well, not that I'm aware of anyways.
I know, not that I'm aware of either. It's incredible. It's so incredible.
Right? I mean,
about it.
Sorry?
Gives me goosebumps thinking about it.
Right? Like just when you said connection, like automatically like I thought live stage, live performance, especially since we've been missing this the last year. I haven't been to a concert in like at least a year and a half, like probably 2 years now. Probably. That's crazy. That's nuts. Because before it was like normal. Oh, we're going to a concert. Want to come? Or we're going here. We're going. It was just kind of normal. And now it's like a luxury when you're like, you're going to a concert.
Yeah, totally. Right. It really shows what we, like taken for granted in a way, right?
Yeah. But is that the reason why you would say you focus way more on gratitude with Frequency Winery, knowing that what you say and what you play affects us human beings? Is that, I don't know, maybe that was just a more intuition thing, but it sounds very intentional.
Yeah, I definitely think, I mean, so like my parents were they were amazing raising me. They both meditate like daily, and when I started working at Frequency and realizing the impact that just gratitude can make,
Yeah.
and really trying to focus on that and watching how this company was kind of built off of it. And then I read a lot of spiritual books and self-help books and stuff like that, and monk books and all kinds of things. And there's always like this reoccurring theme in all of them, and it's like gratitude and service. If humans were to act a little bit more like nature, where nature is constantly giving back as much as it kind of takes, like humans are the only really species that doesn't do that. And so I just hear this message over and over again amongst many different ethnicities and religions and different books and different mentors, where service and gratitude is like a top thing that I think. So I just always try to put that in the front of my head with most things that I do. I just try to always put that like in reminder. Okay, ask ourselves, what can we give and not what can we get? And it's hard because our society has raised us and really made us, a lot of us think like, okay, you need to do this so you can get this, and you need to do this so your family can get this. And it's, our circle is very closed off when we think about it. Like, oh, okay, well, I do this, but I do this for my family, right? It's like, okay, what can you give like greater scale, like beyond your own little bloodline, right? Like, what can you give, right? So yeah, I can't remember entirely what your question was, but I was like, as I'm kind of coming back around, I'm like,
if gratitude was intentional, since you know what effect it has on people, clearly.
Yeah, gratitude is definitely intentional. Knowing the effect that it has on people. And you never feel worse when you give something to somebody that's in less of need, right? You never feel like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Totally. It makes sense. Like, my regrets are not doing not giving. I never regretted, oh my gosh, I gave this person some of my time or some of, it's very rare. It does. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, doesn't occur, but it's mostly not doing something rather than, oh, I've served this person, I've helped this person, I wish I wouldn't have done that, right? And funny enough, like in all the marketing aspects, they're all talking about service and giving and adding value and being grateful. That's what everyone's talking about. Every online course I've bought, every book I've bought on, everyone is talking about giving and serving and being grateful. And, that really makes a huge difference than being in that take mentality. And people feel that.
Yeah, I feel it right away, right? Especially now that I'm trying to become more and more aware of, the things that I do and things that I say. I definitely notice now with new business partners or people that I meet, it's an energy, again, it's a vibe you feel right away. Totally. Oh, this person in it because they want more things for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's very clear, right? It's something that you feel and you get and you're like, oh, okay, I understand, right? You know, it just becomes a little bit, you just level of awareness goes up.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's why I'm just being more selective with the people I'm surrounding myself with. For me, it's more quality now than quantity, because I'm like, why should I have people around me that are draining me out constantly, right? They're just taking. I'm always giving, and then they're taking, you know. I mean, I take sometimes too. I'm not saying that I'm always giving. That would be a lie, but but you know, do you just want those people around you that really fill you up too, and not just take? And you know, that's why I enjoy talking with you and with other people on the podcast. I'm trying to be more selective on who I have on here, because it's obviously going to affect the people that are listening to it, right? Because you have the words and everything, and so I want this to be uplifting, I want this to be encouraging, and hopefully people that are listening are like, oh, okay, I didn't know I had this power as a musician, right? I hope, like, if you can take anything from this interview, is like, understand your worth and the power that you're holding as a musician and how valuable you are. Because I think I underestimated it extremely. I don't know, doesn't that make you just feel good when you're like, I can't do this? Like, I had no idea this affects.
Yeah, I literally wrote a song 2 nights ago, and I haven't been writing very much. I haven't. I go through phases where I'm kind of in a mixing stage or producing stage, or I haven't been writing very much. And I came in the other night and it was late, and I heard this song, and the first time I heard it, I just happened to have a microphone there, and I was like, okay, right away, one of those magical moments where lyrics just come out really flowing and easy, and recorded it right away. But my lyrics are talking about that. Like, it's a message to my artist friends and saying, you know, don't abuse this power, because we are the messengers. And, you know, there is, it's something that we all need to like speak on and tell our stories and really connect to our roots and our, you know, our hearts, and put that message out there in our lyrics. And just be aware of the power that music has to heal on like a global level.
It's insane. I mean, and that's why I connected with your lyrics so much, is because I'm like, this girl is real. This girl, you know, is talking about real stuff. Like, she's not BSing anything, like, you know, and you're actually trying to bring across the message. And that's what made me fall in love with your music and everything you're trying to portray. And I'm like, gotta have her on here. I just can't not have her, right? And it was really the lyrics, because as a songwriter, I mean, for me, lyrics are the most important thing. I mean, the music is also important, but you know, if it could be a great song, but if the lyrics are crap, I'll turn off the radio, because I'm like, I cannot listen to this, right? And you're a really good example of, you know, leading with example of, you know, how words affect other people and what powers they have. So I know I said that in the last podcast, but again, I just really want to thank you, because that is something that's more rare than anything. And so, yeah, and that's what I look for personally. So that's what made you just stand out. I'm like, wow, cool. Yes. I like her. I want her on the podcast.
That's awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, you saying that, because it's, like I said, it's a scary place sometimes when you're speaking on things or doing things where there's not a whole lot of other people doing it. Or, you know, like my sister's actually doing her PhD in like neuromuscular physiology. So she's a research scientist. And, you know, paths like that, where you're researching science, paths like art, and they get lonely sometimes, because you're doing things that, you know, are different, but you're passionate about them. And, you know, you gotta just try and find strength in knowing that you just speak from your heart and it'll be okay. But that is something I try to, like, the phrase lead by example is something I really have like in my head almost every day, because I don't think it's right to tell people what they should and shouldn't be doing. Like, it is, everybody's in their own life, everybody's got their own thing going on, even if
Yeah.
it's your, you know, your partner, your children or whatever, right? Like people have their own things going on. But I feel like the best way to try and kind of, I guess, or whatever, help or do whatever you can is, yeah,
Mhm.
lead by example, right? Like,
Yeah,
okay, if you want that, well, you try to be that, right? And then
exactly. Totally. And that's what what you did and what you continue on doing. You know, because it always says like actions speak louder than words. You can try and tell someone to do something, but if they're like, well, but you're not doing it, then what's the point? You know, that there was this uh oh, what's this guy? Oh, the one that uh this really famous person. He went to jail for not wanting to fight or something, and he's like the peace person that you see everywhere. I'm just not remembering his name right now. Basically, crap, I can't remember his name. You know, when
not
it's
like
in your head and then you want to say it and then it just kind of disappears and you're like, dang. Anyways, this really like I don't think he's a Buddhist, but he's like this really, he believed in like peace and, you know, helping other people and gratitude instead of war. And so he had like this huge following, and this mom came up to him with her kid and she's like, can you please tell him to stop eating sugar or something? And he's like, okay, I will, but come back next week. And then so she came back next week and she said, hey, I was here last week. Can you tell my son, please, to stop eating sugar? It's not good for him. And so he kind of kneels down and he takes him on, like holds him on the shoulders, and he looks at him. He's like, you shouldn't be eating sugar because it's not good for you. And then the mom was like, why couldn't you just told him that last week? And he said, like, last week I was still eating sugar. Right. So, you know, if he would have just told him that, but he wasn't doing it himself, you know, and he understood that example of, you know, leading by example, not just saying stuff for people to feel good, but like really making sure your, you know, your lyrics are what you want to say and not something that you know you feel like will attract more people or makes you want to look or sound better or cool or whatnot. And so I appreciate people that don't follow that way and they're like, you know what, this is scary. I don't know if anyone will relate, or but the funny thing is, like you said, is like once you speak it out loud and somebody hears it, they usually say, I feel the same way. You know, I had no idea someone else felt like that too, because everyone talks about the easy stuff and whatnot, but you know, when you talk about the real stuff and you say, this is what I'm struggling with, even though it's scary, but then someone else be like, you know what, I feel the same way. And then all of a sudden you have the connection. Um, and yeah, I mean, I can't praise you enough. but but yeah, anyways, I just want to thank you for that, because I thought, yeah, it's really rare. So thank you.
thank you for doing what you're doing and like getting all these messages out, and you know, being in it because you love it. And
Yeah,
I really appreciate what you do.
thanks. Yeah, I'm doing my best. You know, we're all just kind of hanging in there. But yeah, for my last question, what are like three like little advice nuggets that you would like to give other musicians that are maybe, you know, not sure what to do or struggling with their lyrics or what to say or what not to say and stuff like that?
I think everybody has the power to tap into what their heart says. And I do think it takes practice and it takes time, but I am a big believer that, you know, if you are kind of exercising and you know, eating somewhat clean or whatever, or meditating or vibing or doing it whatever you need to do in order to tap into yourself and
Mm,
really hear the message of what you need to say. I think that's important, as opposed to trying to write something for everybody.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Or trying to write something for somebody specifically.
Mm,
Because I think as artists, it's if you're in it to try and please everybody, it's the road is probably not going to end incredibly well.
No.
Like you really just got to be invested in it for the long haul, like until you die. You know, this is a craft that you're at it till you die. It's, you know, maybe everybody's got a different mission, but again, this is just my little piece of advice is I think it's just important to know your body and your mind and your spirit and really tune into what you need and listen to it at certain times. So, you know, if you need to be around your friends one day to vibe up, or if you need, you know, a week alone with your phone off, like do that.
Yes.
And don't worry about what other people have to say or what other people are going to be, you know, questioning and doing this. Like you just need to do it for you. And then to just be, yeah, to be brave enough to put things out there. Again, I think the artists and the musicians and the peacekeepers, they say things that not everybody else has the courage to say, and I think it's important to find strength in each other. So that's why it's really important to always have your kind of community there and be vocal, right? Speak about things and share your expressions and how you feel, because you'll be surprised that you're not the only one that feels that way.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's just important to tap into yourself,
Yeah.
know what you need, and speak up about it, and you know, have community around you, because we don't need to do this alone, you know.
No, I like that. In our last conversation, we kind of talked about that as well, you know, and where you said, you know, I started from zero, and you kind of asked people around you to like, hey, what did you hear? What do you do there? So, you know, again, leading with example, you know, and I'm trying to kind of do the same. I'm like, I have no idea to do this, but you do. So
Yeah, right. Always seek mentorship and
yeah,
always give back mentorship as well. That's
yeah,
another big, like always seek mentorship and always give back a mentorship. And yeah, and sound and how sound affects us is so cool.
yeah,
So it's important for that too, how much sound and frequencies and vibrations we can affect each other. And I think if everybody were to get up every day, I don't do this, so again, like I should do it, but I'll lead by example first. But if I were to wake up and write down 10 things I'm grateful for every day,
yeah.
every single day, you know, it would probably be I think I like to believe I'd be a little lighter in my step.
Mm, No, it really, like I had again, like through that depression phase, I had a little book. It was like this big, like not just a little tiny, so I could put it in my pocket, and every day I would, you know, write something in there I was grateful for, because I literally had to rewire my brain from looking for all this negative stuff in my life and things that weren't working. And and then specifically training my brain to look for the good things. And when you're grateful for something, even that it's that you woke up that morning, or you know, just little things like that, it don't have to be huge things, but it completely shifted who I was as a person, you know, completely. I think gratitude was a huge thing that made probably the most difference in my life, because you have to rewire your brain. It doesn't, like, for some people it might come naturally. For me it didn't. Or I had to rewire my brain. Now it comes naturally. Now I'm, you know, I'm more there, but I think I want to pick it up again now. You know, you saying that, I think I want to have, you know, write down one thing I'm grateful for every day. I think that's a good idea. I'm gonna start that.
Me too. Me too. We'll hold each other accountable, because
Yes,
it's so easy,
yeah,
right? You could have the same day, and yeah, right. It's in black and white, and you could kind of pick out all the negative things super easy if your
yeah.
brain is wired that way, right? But you can also pick out all the good things if your brain is wired that way. So it's important to exercise it like a muscle, right?
It's like a muscle, totally. Like you find what you're looking for. So if you're looking for all the crap in life, you'll find it. But if you're looking for the honey, now you're attracting the bees, right? So it's totally that my mom says is like, are you putting out crap or are you putting out the honey? Because that will definitely attract different things in your life. So if you're really negative and, you know, and looking for that negativity, the flies will come. But if you're putting out the gratitude and the honey, then the bees are going to come, and, you know, you'll have the exact same situation, but a totally completely different outcome just because your mindset is different. And that's one of my biggest, well, not secrets, but really going from that depressed state to being happy and, being where I am now, which I would have never thought I would ever be at. But, just simple things like that. And it affects your entire body, right? Because you're saying it out loud, right? Say it out. I'm grateful I woke up this morning. I'm grateful the sun was shining today. I'm grateful I felt the wind on my face, or was able to hug someone.
Yeah, totally.
Thought I would ever have to say that ever, but
Yeah.
hug, smile.
And it's so incredible. I feel like once you kind of do rewire your brain that way, and you're living it every day, then all of a sudden something clicks, or maybe it did for me anyways, where all of a sudden there was no more bad days ever. Because even if a really close loved one dies, which would probably be the most unfortunate thing ever, but there's always a lesson in something, and a lesson is always a win. So I just feel like, there's never any bad days anymore, which is like, you've got hard days, you've got stressful days, and you're always learning on, if it's a hard day, okay, I'm gonna learn what not to do next time, and me learning and doing that, I am progressing, right? So
totally. That's why Tony Robbins always says is life happens for us and not to us. Like when we see it as a gift, to grow, then all of a sudden good things happen. If you see it as like punishment and whatever you want to see it as, then you're not going to grow. You're going to stay where you're at, and you're going to probably be very unhappy. That's where I was, at least. So
well, congratulations on killing it. I'm so grateful to be talking here to you today, and to be, and I'm grateful for this friendship that we have created, and I
love it.
To see you today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Really, I don't know. I just love talking with you. Maybe that's why I needed some excuse to have you back on. Be like, Jodie, we still need to talk about the Frequency Winery. But it's really cool. In that sense, COVID, I do see it more positive, right? Because I would have never met the people I'm interviewing now. I would have never met you. I would have never met Jacob. I would have never met anyone I've really interviewed on here. And now I'm so grateful because, so happy. So thank you so much. I wrote it real. So here's my accountability thing.
Yes, nice. I'm gonna write it down too. I'm totally gonna do that.
I'm gonna write it down, because as in tomorrow, I'm gonna keep a gratitude journal. And I keep my accountable for that. So yeah, for the closing question, as always, where can people, well, first of all, find you as Jodie B, and where can they go and find the Frequency Winery?
Yeah. So Jodie B is on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, all that stuff. Jodie, Jodie, the letter B, so JODIE music. .com or any of that stuff. And then Frequency, our Instagram is Frequency Wine and Sound. And the website is Frequency Wine and Sound, I believe, as well. Facebook, it could be Frequency Winery, Frequency Wine and Sound also, but we're all on there. And we post all of our videos that we've recorded here in the studio, because we do lots of live recordings with videos. We post them all onto our Facebook and our YouTube.
Yep. I know you do have like a lot of like artists on your website, like their live performances and stuff. So I know that's on your website, because I already have a lot of artists on my mind that I want to maybe get on the podcast. So
Wicked.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to link everything up as well. I'll link up all your stuff, Jodie. I'll link up everything for the Frequency Winery. And thank you for being on here once again. Again, you're my first returned guest on here. And so again, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for talking to me and just being awesome. And it's just amazing what, sound can do with someone, and
Yeah.
mind blown.
Thank you for setting the tone to have a great, like, thank you for setting the tone for me to have a great day.
Yeah.
Today's gonna be a fantastic day because I've started out by talking to you and talking about sound and gratitude. And I'm just so, by speaking it out loud, by rewiring our brains, I'm like, yes, today is going to be beautiful. It's going to be great. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Perfect. Oh, I love that. See, now I've got everything I needed to do. Yeah, I mean, that's the purpose of the podcast, so I appreciate that. That's, because you're always kind of working and thinking, is it affecting the people the way I intended to be, or is it coming across completely different? So it's kind of nice that I'm hitting the goal at some point. So thank you. Really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the Musician Secrets podcast. I appreciate your time because you could literally be doing a bazillion other things right now, but you're here with me, so thank you. If you want, you can scroll all the way to the bottom and leave a comment on how you're liking the podcast, what you've learned, and things you've even implemented that have helped you out. As a little thank you, I put together a free members area with all my best resources, books, podcasts, and online courses about everything you need to know as an independent musician, from producing to songwriting to marketing to building a home studio, all the good stuff. All you have to do is either click the link below or go to alisekoa.com/free. I'll see you on the other side. Bye!
Great. Up in here in the nest, when everyone around you tells you what's best. I gotta trust my gut, yeah, I gotta cut my ties. Leap into the unknown and learn to